Hi, this is Sheila with Conscious Conversation Central, and it is Saturday, September the 8th, 2018, the eve before the new moon. And I think that's a new moon in Virgo, too, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Yeah, this is a big moon, too. I'm going to be doing a recording about some of that.
Oh, nice.
Tomorrow, yeah. So I'm not really going to introduce this one. I'm actually going to turn it straight over to BZ because we talked about this last night, and I know it's important to talk about. And I want BZ to just jump right in because I was very intrigued about it last night. So you're on, BZ.
Well, this is one of those conversation thoughts that came to me when I was driving on a Thursday, and it actually, I was just bebopping along, and this came in really strong. So it was interesting to hear. My voice sounded different in my voice recording as I recorded.
Yeah, actually, I want to, if it's okay, that's part of the reason I actually wanted to do this way.
Yeah.
I wanted to hand it straight over to you, partly because when you shared your recording, how you do, for those of you who are saying, what's this about? BZ makes notes to herself, voice recordings of things that her soul, communications really, right, that you have about things that are, creative, that are important to do. And nudges, if you will, that when you're busy and you don't have time, you're making recordings about them.
Right.
And when you shared this particular recording with Lisa and I, and your voice was completely different. I could tell this was like a directive straight from source, almost, is the,
Yeah.
that's really the energetic I felt from it. I think that's why I really wanted to just hand this
sense
straight
of
over.
urgency.
Yeah.
Like I've never heard in your voice before. So it was a completely different. Yeah, it was completely different. It was nothing I had heard, no energetic from you I'd heard before. So I found that quite intriguing in and of itself.
So what the whole conversation I was having is about, it's not a space or events that are about to happen. It's events that are happening right now and will unfold in a bigger and bigger way. More of them will be coming online. And it's, the main thing is about turning on and decoding all of you, period, full stop. But with specifics to decoding you as your whole being as a discernment meter and resonance meter. So that when you're watching something like this, or you're having a conversation with someone next to you, or you're having a conversation with yourself, maybe you're meditating, maybe you're starting to have conversations with your soul, maybe you're talking to your guides, maybe you're talking to other beings, there could be lots of different ways it is. Maybe you're reading a newspaper, or talking to someone on the phone, or talking to someone right next to you, on the street corner, neighbor or something. So wherever it is, however that connection is coming, so it can be outside of you with a paper or video or phone or whatever. It can be within you just for yourself. It can be within you with your guides, and however you're doing that, meditation, all sorts of things. This is the time to really decode that, superpower that I jokingly referred to, because it's a natural, innate function of who you are. And the reason that this is so important is with all of these reveals going on, and they're getting bigger and faster and louder, and some might have the perspective of more shocking or more wow, or I didn't see that coming, and with all that going on, what's happening, we're in the moments now where we're actually visibly seeing the old false construct completely coming down. Everything will completely come down. And even those who heretofore haven't been awake, haven't been paying attention, have been, looking in another direction and saying, okay, no, those beings are really great beings to hang out with, and everything else is, tearing all this down. So even they're realizing it. They're just don't have a clean flow within themselves. They don't have an awareness within themselves, and by their own choosing, by their not paying attention to their nudges. Darby would hold that even those beings are seeing all of this coming down. It's almost, you could use the visual of, there's a city block with many different kinds of structures. You might have an ornate church on one corner, and you might have a bank, and you might, I'm using the metaphors there, you might have a school, you might have, all these other kind of structures, and they're all on this one long block, and they're all crumbling down. You're standing there watching, and to some extent it's a fairly controlled demolition of it, although there's going to be stuff. So that's happening, and the reason that there's this, that I have the sense that this strong nudge came in, is as that happens, and so all these buildings come down. In that space, I wouldn't characterize it as a vacuum. I would characterize it as a space. So a space between the old and the new, a space between the end and the beginning, a space between maybe the completion and the flowering is the way that I would say, for me, feels the most apt. So a completion of one, and then the flowering. Well, so if for something to flower, it already has good roots, and it already has the beginnings. Maybe if it's a vegetable or perennial or something, it has the plant. It's got some structure to it already, and now it's flowering. So that's where I would categorize where we're really in the first part of that. But in that space.
Well, I want, if you don't mind, because
Yep.
I heard something. I'm not quite sure exactly what the question was, but it was also something that came in for me in that, when you're describing the buildings coming down, I want to make sure that it feels important to say that it's as the systems, because that's really what's happening now, is the systems, and along with that, belief systems are going to be challenged and come down as well. And in the space that you're speaking of, in between where that belief used to be, as it's gone now, it's not, like you said, it's not a vacuum, but it has now created a space. And this is what I wanted to make sure that was very clear, that this is what you're speaking of. Because
one of the reasons I use the buildings as a visual metaphor, and the specific kinds of buildings, because they really are a good metaphor. They're actually, you can be taken literal, because what is a building but a structure?
Sure. True.
So what is a church is a religion, that's a structure. A school, education, that's a structure, right? Banking, bank, trade, and finance, structure, right? You could put a prison on that block too, although it's just it's just a side shoot of the bank, because it's a bank. It's structure.
Right.
So, and as you talked about belief system, all those kinds of things, those are structures. Those are structures within your core of an energetic that is held in a certain way. So all of those are coming down. They're all coming down. And in that space, there are entities that are poised to come into that space. There are entities that are non-locals, okay, and that refers to off planet, so non-local. There are entities that are on this planet but are actually non-locals, but they're here already. And then there are entities that could be full human on this planet that have either willingly given their allegiance to those entities or have had their allegiance taken by those entities. And this is not something to be fearful at all of. This is something to be awareness and noticing. And what really is, which is why I got such a strong nudge on it, is that you stand in your own power and in your own trust and in your own love of yourself and the river of love itself, because that's far more mighty than any bombs, bullets, or anything else. The energetic of that has a greater force of dematerialization, just to use that word, than any atomic bomb that would be a smidgen in size, the way they would be rated. But so turning on and decoding your whole being as a discernment meter is very important right now, because then you thwart anything moving into that space that is not of an expansive nature, that is not of a higher vibrational nature, that is not of truly new Christed crystalline consciousness and plasma awareness. And you do that because when you're and there've already actually been some things kind of seeding the ground, and I'm just going to leave the hint as I posted something on the IUV in the last day or two, financially speaking. I'll leave it at that. So there are things that are, kind of little things that are, which actually have big underlying factors in them, are being seeded into the awareness, being seeded in media, being seeded in, the public domain. And so if you're in the space of love, if you're in the space of trusting oneself, then that moving into that space cannot happen. And so that's what this was the conversation that I had, and the strong nudge to play with this was all about.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because there's a lot of factors that would come into play in something like that right now too, because there's been a lot of talk for a long time actually in terms of all sorts of things, where when things start to crumble, that there's always, and come on, those that have been playing this game a while know that it's more than just pay attention over here while, you know, this other hand is doing something over here. It's more than that. It's like you got to play with the 17 friggin' million hands that are, you know, that you didn't never even saw coming when it comes to the, you know, the ubiquitous they. And the slipping in, see, for me, part of it is if I don't trust myself and I put it out there for anything, any reason, to me, that's where it gets sketchy in this juncture.
Yeah.
Right.
It feels to me.
Right.
Yeah. Anytime you're looking outside of yourself for absolutely anything, that's the door, the opening. That's
Right.
how you invite that situation.
I get
right
it though.
in.
I get it though, because I know what's happening in some cases. You know, everybody's like so tired. They've been hearing this, that, and the other, and believing in this, that, and the other for so long. And, you know, this is the one. This is the one. You know, this time it's going to happen and whatnot. And I get it.
Well, look around. There's a lot of interesting things happen this week that were mic drop moments, and you know, so, and those were just in small specific areas, and they were pretty vast in those small specific areas. So, you know, I posted 2 that I'm talking about again on the IUV, and you know, there's a lot of others that are happening that are not just in the swamp range, you know.
Right.
But if it's turning and trusting your expert knowing. So, you know, asking other people questions, having conversations, all terrific.
Yes.
When it's come from the place of your knowing is the final word. So same thing with validation or anything like that, you know, because all of those are habits.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, we talked a little bit about this the other day, you know, validation. Well, when you're doing ICOMs, you're doing whatever you're doing that's related to yourself. Well, you're the expert. If you're the expert, which you are, sorry, that's the way it is. So Lisa's for Lisa, Sheila for Sheila, BZ, Keegan, you know, the whole 9 yards, right? So if you're the expert and you have all of you imploding into you, all of your higher selves, and your soul completely locking in so that it is actually captaining the ship, the light ship, your light body, your Merkaba, right? And you want validation. Well, okay, I just rattled off a whole bunch of beings you can get validation from, instead of going out there for validation. Because because it is a habit, because it is of a smaller aperture, because it is of a lower frequency vibration, it's much easier for a being to come in and ride on that rail of that validation, give you validation of one sort, but maybe give you half of one and half of the other. So half that you got it and the other half, you know what I'm saying? So,
Yep.
So that you're doubting yourself again in some fashion, and therefore looking perhaps to that being to.
yeah. So look at that's part of what I'm saying. The other part I'm saying is validation is cool, but if you're going to have validation, right? What is validation? Validation is an external source. One way to hold it. That's kind of, maybe you get a ribbon or something, and so that's validation that you did well.
Right.
So there's lots of different ways.
Gold star.
Well, then why not go to the champion, the biggest, best, badassest expert that you can go to for your validation, is what I'm saying. I mean, if you're going to go for validation, stop pussyfooting around with the smaller people you could get validation from, and go right with the cream of the crop validator. Yes? Is that, were you with me so far?
Yes.
Okay. And who is that? Oh, that's you. in all of your bigness, right? Okay, and then set it up, be playing with it. Because in that validation, there's something that the small part of you is looking for. Cool. All right. So honor that, play with that, and set up your validation test, we'll say, with your soul, and say, I know this is silly or whatever, but I want validation, and so give it to me. And what you'll find is that it's then coming and directing, and we talked about this, where you can just walk up to someone on the street, will walk up to you, or someone in a store or something, just look at you and go, wow, you're doing a great, it'll speak to you that will make complete sense to you. Someone next to you may not get it, but you will get the message. It will be delivered loud and clear.
Yeah.
And that's a lot better than going to somebody else, because you voiced the setup that you wanted.
Yeah.
You voiced the specificity and particularity that you wanted, which you can then boil down to an energy frequency. And you turned it over to the expert. And then now you'll get it back.
Which is fun.
Yeah, see, you know what? I still don't do enough of that. I think that's part of my issue. I don't do enough of that. That's something I haven't done enough of.
Well, I used to request it and look for it. Like say, show me, which means really when I'm asking to show me, it isn't from a thing of lack, but more of a allow me to keep it in my mind that I'm going to focus and look for it. Really, because it's there. And so when I'm coming from that energetic, then I find it.
Right.
Because it's there.
It's interesting, Sheila, you said, I find myself not do that enough. And again, so the beauty of this from my perspective, from a linear thinking perspective, is that for the smallness part, you got it all going on, because you're asking somebody else outside of yourself. You're not trusting that part of you, right? You're going for the expert, someone who, is the bomb. They've got everything going on. They know the whole thing. And this particular expert you're asking, right, has access to all that ever was, is, will be, and the potentiality of that. And, has, we'll say, bachelor degrees and all these other, lauded things in the knowledge and expert of this.
Right.
And it's you. So if you want to hold those as a separation between you in this instance, well, maybe that's helpful. But what it'll also show you is if there's not trusting in that, then that's a core energetic that you need to integrate, because that's a step you can't go any further until you work with that step.
Right.
And number two, if you're leading away to something else, some other expert, right? Then there may be a program running that's, remember I talked about the way that it came to me as the 3 different levels of being. So the non-local beings, the on-planet but that are non-local, and those who have given their allegiance to or had their allegiance taken. So if there is propensity to continually, now that you're aware of it, now that you're noticing, now that you're playing with it, to still continue to do that, then you might want to look in the allegiance category there and see, what's there to play with.
Right. I'd like to go on record right now as saying I think I just ate a bug.
More protein.
I know, right?
I just ate a bug.
Well, it about choked me, to be honest.
I know. I'm sorry.
Hey, we're outside. It's going to happen. It's their territory. Well, I wanted to say, BZ, that I think I'd like to do it in another conversation, but tantamount or well, actually coinciding, I guess, with this kind of conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about decoding, and another word for that for me too is, I mean, it's much deeper than just feeling into something.
Mm-hmm.
But I've really been noticing for myself that, especially when I get the chance to be in nature and just sit, we really are our entire being, not just our bodies. Everything we have is part of that decoding, I think. So it's like,
it's an instrument,
right? And so, I mean, I'd like for us to do that in a separate conversation, but that goes into what you were speaking on in terms of discernment and, you know, when these things are taking place, the decoding of, you know, what's what. Mm-hmm. And that for me is part of it. So I'd like for us to go a little deeper into, you know, because I did a short video about, and I noticed that you put it on the IUV, so thank you for that. Sherry reached out to me and thanked me for that as well. But I also mentioned then in that video that I wanted the three of us to go a little deeper on that subject. Mm-hmm. So I wanted
so
to
that's
mention,
2 videos.
Yeah. Well, as far as I can see, there's just videos and videos and more videos.
Right, but I was trying to get specific. I'm making notes here, so if I want the note to make any sense, I gotta be.
Oh, I see.
So you said decoding, so you wanted to do that in another video. And then you said there's another word, but you didn't say the other word. So were you saying the other word is feeling into?
Well, yeah, for me, part of it, it's part of it. It's much, decoding is actually much deeper than just feeling into something.
Yeah, they're 2 different things.
Right. Well, okay, I wouldn't call them 2 different things, actually. For me, it's not an either or, it's an and. Because I think feeling into something also goes into decoding a situation, right, or anything. It's part of it. For me anyway. That doesn't mean it is for you or everybody or anybody else. Because who's the expert again? Me. And so for me, feeling into things, especially energetics too, the energetics behind things, you know. Some really good friends of mine taught me, were trying to help me figure out how to read energetic signatures. They shall remain nameless. But, you know.
Well, what I was saying is a feeling into and decoding are different because they're both very big subjects, and decoding is, it's coded and you're decoding it, and there's a whole process, a whole way of being that you are with that, and things feel different ways and flow different ways. And feeling into is more of an everyday, every moment tool. You can feel into things, right? And you may not have something that's a download or that's a packet that's come, that's already within you, that's highlighting now to be decoded. So that's more of a linguistics thing. you know?
Yeah, I gotcha. I can see your point. I I on this one for me, it just feels like they definitely go together because I also feel this is a new thing for me too. That that's what we're doing. Uh, Not just 24/7, but just every single moment of all. We're decode. That's the whole purpose, by the way. I feel this whole vessel
Mm-hmm.
is
A
to
giant
decode.
decoder. Yeah.
And so everything we do, whether we're consciously aware of it, that's the key, is decoding that consciousness that resides in here at this moment, what's animating us.
Right, where and you know, you can play with it and widen out a little more, and it you're creating it and then you're decoding it.
Right.
And as you decode, you create new things, and then you code it. So
Yes.
that's why I was saying it's that was the only reason why I was pointing in different conversations, because otherwise
Now we're talking about templates. Here we go.
That's right.
It's
Yes,
all
it gets
connected.
yes, it gets it does get a little bit deep. That's why I said I do definitely want to go into that, but because it does play into what you're talking about here.
absolutely, and that's part of the in that space. So that if you so for some examples, there is a lot of talk now and signs where the whole false construct of the financial system, which is not failing, it's doing everything it's been designed to do, and it's run its course. So, and banks, same thing. So there's nothing to save because there was nothing ever not functioning within them, because they function exactly as they were designed. So they're not broken.
Yeah, that's the one thing that a lot of folks, I think, haven't actually come to grips about, and that is that those that think that it's just broken and needs to be fixed are not apparently aware of the fact that it is always done exactly what it is designed to do. It's not at all broken.
Right.
You're just finding out what it actually has been doing all along, because you didn't really know. I know I didn't know until that movie Zeitgeist came out. Most folks still aren't even really clear what a fractional reserve banking system is and what we're operating under. They just think, well, it's working. And
well,
so
I'm going. So this is again feeling into decoding, using your instrument as a discernment instrument. So it's bigger than that, because it's the whole slavery system, with the headline on the slavery systems being the financial slavery system, which has affected every being, whether you see them as a good being or a bad being, every being on this planet and off planet, because it's a universal commercial code. And it's been going on for eons.
right.
Eons. So the reason that I kind of highlight that is that in this space that I'm talking about, when we can actually see, and all of us we's can actually see in our reality right in front of us, right on the computer screen to our banking portal, right in, you know, all sorts of places that directly relate to this, where we're kind of visiting as a matter of our, you know, daily, weekly routines in life. That reality has crumbled. That paradigm has crumbled. So in that space, these beings that I mentioned, and again, you know, those three areas, have the thought, the plan, the, hey, that's a cool idea, watch this, to come in and proffer a solution that is this newest, greatest thing that's different. And this is where your instrument comes in, because if it had, and you're using the instrument on yourself first. That was the other big, push is a linear word, but that was the other big emphasis, we'll say, on the nudge, is that you use it first on yourself in discerning what needs to be integrated, in discerning where there is small aperture focus and an energetic frequency of being small, of being limited, of being in a box, of being with constraints, of being hierarchical, of being enough and not enough, of being they have and I don't have, or I can have X amount, or, you know, however, there's lots of ways people hold it.
Right.
And in doing that, and you do that first with yourself, you're clearing that out. So then when some being comes in and says, well, we got this new great system that's, you know, we can have everybody be their own personal central bank, or these kinds of things, you can use that instrument of your own and go, well, wow, you know, it's kind of psychedelic colored and struts around a lot, but that looks exactly like what just came down. And so, as my friend HATJ said, you know, you can't put Humpty Dumpty back together again, and you can't dress Humpty Dumpty up in a new dress and trot them out. All that stuff is done and over. And now, on the actual linear, tangible, physical side, you are seeing it all coming down. And it's not just banking, they're all tied together, but it's the justice system, it's all of those things. They're actually all businesses, and they're all subsidiaries of banking, which is the end all and the be all of what the business is on the planet and off planet, because it's a universal conduit. The slavery system is a universal slavery system. Okay, if you think of people talk about and are now starting to talk about slavery systems and realization of that. So if you talk about the financial slavery system on this planet, absolutely, off planet. In the areas, there are only a few, but in the areas where they use money like we do. You're talking about trafficking. If you're talking about human slavery, if you're talking about sexual slavery, if you're talking about predation, okay, on this planet, and it's universal, okay. So the scope is multi-dimensional and multiverses.
Yeah.
And the really cool thing is, if you notice and pay attention, is that you've got this. Because you came to this planet at this time because you're highly trained. You came to this planet at this time because your skills, your fortitude, your big-heartedness, your steadfastness, your valor, and your amazing capacity for compassion was what was needed to do the job. So that's what we're also talking about here. That's all part of that instrument, which is you and your vessel that you're in, your light body, your light ship that's coming in. And so when you tune into that, when you decode that, and in that decoding, you allow, with absolute, complete, total joy, your soul to captain this ship. And when you do that, when you at least have the awareness of it, you do it, then those entities cannot come in and fill that space. So someone just asked, well, hang on. Okay, I kind of get this, and I really am feeling into this, and I can feel this, and I need to sit with this, but I'm excited by this. But what about, all those, there's a bunch of other people who I know who don't like that. Well, that's part of your job. And you know what? You don't even have to say anything to do part of that job. You simply transmit. And the electricity coming off of my head when I said that, is huge. But that's what's taking place right now. And you're gonna, you saw it a lot the very last week of August, a lot this week, the first week in September. And with the new moon tomorrow, it's a huge springboard for all of the creation of, again, that flowering. So we're you might say we're putting good organic fertilizer on those flowers because they're budded and they're about to start blooming. Because we have been doing this work, even if you don't remember it. You're tired when you wake up. So everybody is doing the work in different ways. You're going to meetings, you're actually out in sorties, you're doing all sorts of things all the time in multi-dimensional, multi-faceted ways. So this is when you read something or you look at something, or if something bubbles up and you go, gosh, we're going to need to figure out who's going to pick up the trash, whatever that euphemism is, or that reality, right? That's where standing in your creatorness is your decoder ring for all of that. For how do we do that? What does it look like? For maybe having your special superpower flashlight that goes in the unknown. They can cut the murkiness that you might feel of the unknown, of the intangible, of the, wow, how do we do this? I mean, this is all we've known, kind of a thing.
Well, that's what I actually feel. And just now when you were saying that, okay, so that's where I want to play, actually, is in that space as those things are crumbling. I think it's going to be the most expansive to play in that space as to, oh, yeah, okay, so what now?
Yeah.
What now? Let's do it now for something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because instead of looking for me, this is just for me now, of course, but I'm just saying, I am not interested in the same girl in a different party dress on any shape or form, because I'm really, I know, I now can say I know that I'm a creator being, and I also know that the more I focus, the more I can create. And I'm excited about that. And I'm focusing on that in that space. And part of it too is I'm a bit jaded by all of the newest improved RV that's coming around the corner, or the AIIB, or the bricks, or any and all of those things. They just feel again, all this quantum financial system, whatever, Bitcoin, all these things they all feel the same.
Yeah.
They're all very limiting. They're all very, I feel that,
They're hierarchical.
yes.
Yes.
And this is not just in money. This is in purported healing systems. A lot of the old modalities, just to take healing for example, now are so out of tune. The energy frequency, they're so out of tune for where each being is now. It's a serious disservice to the being.
Yes. My father is 83. I think he'll be 84 on September 11th, actually. And he had what he called an old country doctor. Now, so this was my dad saying this, and this doctor was sharing things with my dad that he said, of course, you can't tell nobody I said this to you because it was an old doctor, it's an old country doctor remedy and that sort of thing, because, well, it's just like with almost anything else. Once the money, aka the slavery system, financial slavery system, gets involved, then the things that really are helpful are not, they're bastardized and those sorts of things. And we all know that. I mean, everyone really, on some level, even the most, folks would call a sleep person, is aware that stuff is not right about all of that kind of thing. And so there's lots of folks that are actually would adore the opportunity to do stuff the natural way and that sort of thing. Like you were saying, look for a different way to do things once that's all out of it,
Well,
and it's just a matter of focus, though.
Yeah. Well, and again, so I heard a couple people say, well, how do you know which ones? Well, there's a feeling into it, but you could, I'll give you a little checklist. So if on most things, if there's a hierarchical nature to it, then that's a good indication. It's not only not a match and helpful to you, but it's actually, it's deconstructing all the expansion that you're doing. So it's doing a disservice to you. When there is an old, when there's a structure, and if you're talking just about energetic healing, if there's a structure that's come and it's been in place for a long time, but that structure was designed, built on for back when it was as the new thing that was really helpful. But now that's very old because it's not designed on the new energy frequencies. It's not designed because guess what? Your body is not the same as it was. So that's doing a disservice. It's so fascinating. I've had a good friend, she's gone to different practitioners, and she has a chiropractor, but this chiropractor is now doing new modalities. It's chiropractic, but it's new thing. So one of the things in healing is you'll find that's a really good common kind of a note for you to see as this is really of the expansive energies, is when there's not a lot to it. So chiropractic, usually you think of, a bone cruncher or this, that, or the other thing. There's a lot of manipulation. Okay. But if there's really where, in this particular instance, and I don't remember the name of the new thing it's called, but the onus is on your body to do it. And the practitioner is skilled. And the practitioner uses their energy with yours, but basically as a reminder, it's a noticing pointer. So in other words, it says to your body, notice this. So Bowen is another one. So there's a lot of ones out there that if they're working on you as the leader of the healing, if they're working on you as the expert, if they're working the same kinds of things that we've talked about in all of these different areas, they're all connected.
Right.
You know, another way to kind of frame this whole conversation is that time's up and we can't give our power away anymore, and we can't be small anymore. That door is shut and it's over. And if it's still a choice, then you will get instant gratification on that choice of smallness. In a very demonstrable way.
Yeah. Not pleasant.
And the
Well,
other,
I heard somebody say, what do you mean by that?
well, if you're choosing to be small and giving your power away, then you will, you know, you've heard of the separation of worlds. You've heard of the 3-world split. There's, you know, those are metaphoric and actual. And with your energy signature that you carry, the frequency vibrational neighborhood that your whole being lives in, and then that the neighborhood that you live in, you actually create your reality in a reality structure. And so if your choice is to be small, if your choice is to, well, you know, I want someone to handle it for me,
Right.
then you'll get it. That will be the reality that you will live in, and those are the confines that you've created. And that's beautiful because you chose it, because you're the expert for you, and no one can say anything different because it's your choice. What I'm saying is that when you choose that, choose well, because that's a whole path now, and a whole reality now, and a whole frequency trajectory now that you have chosen. And you will go through those trajectories and play them all the way out. And when you get to the end of that, if you're looking from a linear thing of time in a long, long, long time, then you'll have that choosing again, and you may or may not choose something that's of a wider, broader, more expansive aperture.
Well, it feels important to say too, I guess that must be why we did it tonight, on the cusp of this new moon, or the eve before this new moon, to say that you said time's up. And for those that do follow astrology, well, for those that don't, there's been a lot of planets, I think almost, it's 5 or 6 planets were retrograde. Now most of them have turned direct, and this new moon is also important because it's the first new moon after all of those sets of eclipses. So there's a lot of energy behind this new moon. New moons are all about beginnings and honoring the ending of things, and then setting intentions for beginnings. And also this particular thing is important for me in particular, but I'm sure there are others. Saturn just stationed direct on Tuesday in Capricorn, which is its home sign. And Saturn, the last time it has done this and been in this particular place, has been almost 30 years ago. So this is my second Saturn return. I don't know a whole lot about that, but Saturn is brings an energetic of setting things in a, like the parent, the boss, the one that's saying, this is what, this, if this is the choice you've made, you're now prepared to live with it, is basically what Saturn is saying in its home sign. And that's why I feel like this is important to say about in regards to this conversation, being very clear about your choices and being conscious about the choices that you're making, as there's a lot of energetics involved right now. I feel this is, again, everybody's mileage may vary. You can believe it or not, but I feel as though,
well, whether you believe it or not, it doesn't change that the energy frequencies and the type of, the magnitude of, the expansiveness of, the vibrational rapidity of the frequencies that are in, on, around, through, and coming to this planet through each being outwards are ones that have never heretofore been here.
exactly.
And they came in that trinity of eclipses and the Lion's Gate.
Yeah.
And it's funny because okay, well, maybe it's not funny, but it's funny because this is a joyous, expansive thing. Yet there are still some people who say, well, yeah, what if you just want to play small? Well, that's cool, great, spot on, good on you, go for it, have fun with that. And I'll see you around the galaxies in a couple millennia. Because it's not my choice.
I actually, I think I might have said it to Lisa the other day. I think I'm much happier now with if you remember, BZ, when you and I first met, the very first thing I think I said to you was, I jump right to the fantastical. I think I'm enjoying that fact about myself right now. I love that I do that. I love the fantastical. I live there every day. And I'm telling you.
Yeah, because back then it was a problem that you were thinking that someone could help you solve.
Yep. Yes, that's right. I thought it was a problem. It's an issue. Well, again, it's one of those things, you hear all your life, you can't do this, you can't do that. Then you think it's an issue. Guess what? No, it's not.
Right.
Oh my gosh, and it's so much more fun.
It's a valuable tool.
Yes, it
innate,
is.
Natural, special power that's really not all that special, but whatever.
It's special for me.
Well, I understand that, but what I'm saying is, again, it's funny how we think of our languaging, right? A special power. So only special people have it, or you got to do something to make it special, or you got to be really special, and this concept that we're all amazing. And so there really is a void and a dearth of speciality, because there's no hierarchicalness,
Yes.
Well, how do we deal with that? Well, that's where you play. It's joyful. It's, expansive. And you can wear yourself out having fun. I mean, you can be out there, riding the rails of the fantastic and go, okay, I need to sit on this, rainbow for a minute because I got to catch my breath, kind of a thing,
Yeah, actually, that's a very real thing, by the way. Yeah, because we I've noticed for myself.
For me, anyways.
Well, yeah, because for what I've been doing is I sometimes will find myself in 3 different realms at once, and sometimes that's a lot of focus and attention to be, and you're doing stuff in all those realms.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not complaining here. I'm saying that when you first start doing this, it's like, geez, did I do anything today? I'm so tired I could go to bed right now.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of thing. I'm okay with that, actually. But yes, it can feel tiring sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But fun too. So.
Yeah, I'm having the most fun I think I've ever had in my whole life. So, yeah. So apparently the 51st year is pretty awesome. Yeah. Yep.
Oh, for me, once I hit 40, man, it was yeehaw!
Nice.
It really started to get good. Of course, that was a while ago, but
Well, was there anything else that you wanted to add to this particular energetic envelope?
Yeah, I got nudged big time right now to add a little note in very.
Okay, wait a minute. We want to make sure we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm struggling to hear you.
Your microphone again. There we go.
Blow it out.
Okay, try it again.
Make a note that's very linear. Okay. So as you're watching things crumbling down, as you're partaking in things coming down, as you're, getting the bloom on all the things that are blooming and coming to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
If you're seeing, reading, noticing, paying attention to, conversing with, however you want to hold it, however it shows itself for you, and someone is saying, hey, we got a new banking system, or hey, we got a new, tribunal justice type system, any kind of system that's already been here, and there's a new one, that's going to, okay, well, no, we know we're not going to fix that. We just got a new one, and it's, it works similar to that. It's a new one. Someone's trying to sell you something. And again, think of, feel into, trust yourself, and be 100% responsible, accountable, and liable for your choices of what you are creating. Because when you're buying something like that, you're buying structures and a tangible, realistic reality that you're going on a ride for. And it's, it may prove to be a very expansive ride for you, and from your sole purpose of learning and expansion from an eternal being sense. From a linear sense, it's going to be a long ride. There'll be a bunch of commas and a bunch of zeros in the length of time in the ride.
Yeah. There's one thing that I want to say here. It's been some time ago, and I can't share the name of the person as I don't have permission. But back during the time that Lisa and I were part of another group, and we used to have to do something called a campfire chat. There was a member of this group who shared with us that that they had members of their family, extended family, that were part of the system, if you will. And part of the plan that he had heard growing up, of course, was to step in as things are crumbling and say, oh, here, we've got this, and everybody's going to get this amount of money. And all we need for you to do here is sign for your new card or your new whatever. And it's tantamount to, of course, consent and acquiescence. And now you've agreed to be part of yet, like you said,
Yet
BZ,
again.
another
Yeah.
long-term system that nobody really wants to be involved in. So ever since that time for me, because that sounds like something that, you know, ubiquitous day, they're still trying to hold on to, you know, what little bit of power and control they think they can glom onto. That sounds just like something that they might do, thinking that, well, you know, the sheep are, you know, they're not the brightest bulbs in the box, and if we offer them money, well, they'll just line right up for us. And you know what? I'm sure that there will be those that make that choice, and that's like you said, it's their choice. It's a long-term solution to an issue for me that I don't see the need for. But having had that information on board for myself, I just remember that. And whether or not that person is even telling the truth, for me, it sounds plausible and possible. And so I'm like, especially now with everything that I have felt into in regards to everything that has taken place, that I've witnessed and been a part of, not just with the purported case in Tennessee, but all of these metaphors ever since then as well. You know, I don't know. It's not, none of it's necessary.
So I'd like to end with one other thing. And if we keep going, well, there'll be 30 or 40 of these, but
that's right.
And that is to remember. Remember who you are. Remember how amazing you are. Remember the breadth and depth and the fullness of all that compasses you. You have this knowing, you have the tools, you have the fortitude, you have the energy to do it, even if part of you is saying, I'm tired and I don't, know which way to go, and I wish someone would take care of it for you. And you have that too. You do have the expert, which is you as the expert, to help you and guide you and take that care for you. But you're doing it with you. You're doing it together. So remember that. Remember. That's a decoding trigger for you. Remember that. And as you remember that you're not small. Remember that you're soaring on the back of a dragon. Remember that you're dancing in these luminescent lights of energy that are expanding. Remember that you can slide on rainbows. And there are pots. No, they're vats. No, they're galaxies worth. No, they're multiverses worth of things at the end of that rainbow that are so much more fantabulous than you could ever imagine in your amazing imagining. That's what you're playing with. That's what the real choice is. Simply reach out your hand, open your heart, remember, and then step into who you be and do what you're nudged from there. You got this. You can do it.
Man. Did you have anything else you wanted to say, Lisa?
No, that was beautiful.
Okay.
Thank you, lady.
Thank you, BZ. And thank you, Lisa. It feels funny to look at you on the screen.
I know, because I keep wanting to look at you.
I know. I know. We're sitting right next to each other with my microphone in the middle, but because we really wanted to be outside tonight because it's really beautiful here tonight.
So gorgeous.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll have all the usual things in all the usual places. And, if you have questions, as always, the comment section is a good place. But, of course, there's a way to get a hold of each one of us also in the Show More section of this video. So, till next time.
Much love.